Every year, on the night of October 31st, people come together to celebrate Halloween. It's a time filled with a variety of traditions and customs that might seem odd to an outsider. From eerie costumes to playful gatherings, Halloween is a blend of the spooky and the whimsical. One of the most familiar sights during this holiday is people, especially children, dressed in costumes. Many opt for scary personas like ghosts, witches, and monsters, reflecting Halloween's eerie theme. However, creativity knows no bounds, and you'll also see costumes ranging from superheroes to food items like peanut butter and jelly. Children, donning their costumes, roam the neighborhoods, ringing doorbells and joyfully shouting trick or treat in hopes of receiving candy. Yet, every once in a while, they might find a toothbrush or a pencil instead, a classic joke that's as much a part of the tradition as the sweets. Many homes transform their appearance, often taking on a haunted or spooky ambience. Doorsteps are adorned with carved pumpkins, known as jack-o'-lanterns, their eerie faces glowing from the candles within. The tradition of carving jack-o'-lanterns is believed to have originated from an Irish legend about Stingy Jack, a man who tricked the devil and was doomed to roam the earth with only a carved turnip to light his way. This ancient practice evolved over time into the modern pumpkin carving we know today. Inside, parties are held where guests might enjoy traditional activities like bobbing for apples, a game that dates back to Roman harvest festivals. Halloween gatherings are often paired with scary movies, ghost stories, and haunted house experiences, creating a perfect mix of fun and fright. In the autumn air, the scent of apple cider and freshly baked pumpkin pie fills homes, adding to the warm yet eerie atmosphere of the season. For many, Halloween is simply an enjoyable celebration. But imagine trying to explain this peculiar night to someone who had never heard of it. Why do we carve faces into pumpkins, or dress up as ghouls, superheroes, and everything in between? Where did these practices originate? Is Halloween rooted in Christianity, pagan traditions, or is it something else entirely? And is it an American invention, or does it have deeper European roots? Halloween's roots trace back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, celebrated over 2,000 years ago. For the Celts, who lived in what is now Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France, this festival marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, a time when it was believed that the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead was blurred. This is why people wore costumes and lit bonfires, to ward off wandering spirits. Over time, with the spread of Christianity, many of these customs blended with the Church's celebration of All Saints' Day on November 1st, a day to honor saints and martyrs. The night before became known as All Hallows' Eve, which eventually evolved into Halloween. While Halloween is often associated with North American traditions, many countries have their own way of celebrating. For example, in Mexico and parts of Latin America, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, is celebrated around the same time. It's a vibrant festival that honors deceased loved ones with altars, marigolds, and sugar skulls, reflecting a more joyful and reverent approach to death. In this documentary, we'll dive into the fascinating history of Halloween and its traditions, exploring the stories behind characters like Count Dracula, the tricky jack-o'-lantern, and the legendary Frankenstein's monster. We'll also take a look at how Halloween customs vary across different cultures and regions. This documentary is not about convincing anyone to celebrate Halloween or not. Instead, it's about shedding light on this intriguing holiday and enjoying the mysteries that come with it. To truly understand Halloween, we must first ask, where did it begin? The origins of this mysterious night are often debated. Some assert that Halloween is purely a pagan or even satanic celebration. But the reality is more complex. Many of the rituals we associate with Halloween today, as we'll discover, have roots in Christian practices that developed during the late Middle Ages and the early modern era. The lines between Christian and pre-Christian traditions are often blurred, making it difficult to determine the exact origins of each custom. One of the most significant Christian influences on Halloween is All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows' Day, which is celebrated on November 1st. The evening before this day was called All Hallows' Evening, a night dedicated to holding a vigil. As time passed, especially in Scotland, the name was shortened to Hallows Even, eventually becoming Halloween. As these traditions evolved, November 2nd was designated as All Souls' Day, a time to remember all departed souls, especially those believed to be in purgatory, awaiting entry into heaven. These 3 days, All Saints' Day, All Hallows' Eve, Halloween, and All Souls' Day, are collectively known in Christian tradition as All Hallowtide or Hallowmass. This period focused on honoring the dead, praying for the souls of the departed, and reflecting on mortality. Yet, even with these similarities, Halloween as we know it today was still a long way off. The celebration during All Hallowtide bore many similarities to modern Halloween, but it had yet to fully take on the form we recognize today. Over time, though, these customs lingered and gradually transformed as they spread through medieval and early modern Europe. By the late Middle Ages, a variety of customs emerged around All Hallowtide in Western and Central Europe. Bells rang across cities to mourn the dead, while churches displayed holy relics and encouraged parishioners to dress in costumes that represented their favorite saints. Dressing up as saints during this time wasn't simply for fun. It was a way for the living to honor those who had passed on to the afterlife. This practice is believed to have laid the groundwork for Halloween's modern-day costume tradition. An especially intriguing medieval tradition was the Dance of Death, or Danse Macabre. This tradition centered around a powerful Christian allegory that emerged in art, literature, and even church murals. It depicted a procession where figures from all walks of life, from kings to peasants, danced together with skeletons, symbolizing that death comes for everyone, regardless of status or wealth. This somber reminder emphasized that the only thing that truly mattered was one's devotion and service to God. The Danse Macabre is believed to have originated during the aftermath of the Black Death in the 14th century, a time when plague ravaged Europe and brought the reality of mortality to the forefront. These grim portrayals served as a reminder of the inevitability of death and the fleeting nature of earthly life, ideas that resonated deeply with medieval Europeans and influenced their observances during All Hallowtide. Though these practices weren't quite Halloween as we celebrate it today, they shared many common elements, such as a focus on the supernatural and an awareness of the thin boundary between the living and the dead. As the centuries passed, these rituals evolved, blending with local customs and adapting to the cultural context of each region. It was this rich mixture of Christian observance and older pagan customs that eventually paved the way for Halloween as a night of mystery, transformation, and celebration. In medieval Europe, some Christians believed that on the eve of All Hallows' Day, the spirits of the deceased rose from their graves to join in a mysterious dance. This event, known as the Danse Macabre, symbolized the inevitability of death, transcending social and economic boundaries. People of all backgrounds would dress as figures from different social classes, kings, peasants, and everyone in between, and join the dance. It served as a vivid reminder that death eventually claims everyone, regardless of their earthly status. A common saying of the time captured this somber message. Emperor, your sword won't help you out. Scepter and crown are worthless here. I've taken you by the hand, for you must come to my dance. This allegorical tradition sought to remind medieval Christians that their earthly achievements and riches held no value in the face of mortality. The Danse Macabre became a powerful cultural symbol throughout Europe, appearing in literature, church murals, and music. Around the 14th century, another tradition known as souling emerged. People, often children from impoverished backgrounds, would go from door to door asking for soul cakes, which were small spiced cakes adorned with a cross. In exchange, these young solars would offer prayers for the deceased, especially those believed to be in purgatory. This practice was encouraged by the Christian emphasis on charity, as offering food or aid to the less fortunate was seen as a way of performing good deeds. The soul cakes were often baked with spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, symbolizing the aromatic offerings of incense during church services. The cakes were meant to represent the promise of eternal life and the hope for the soul's safe passage to heaven. It was widely believed that on this night, the souls of the departed would journey from purgatory to heaven, visiting the earthly realm one last time. As a gesture of hospitality, food was sometimes left out for these wandering souls. Young solars often took on the role of these spirits, symbolically accepting the offerings left by families. To ward off any malevolent spirits during this time, it is believed that people would disguise themselves in simple costumes, an early form of the tradition of dressing up that continues today. The children carrying out the souling ritual sometimes used lanterns made from hollowed-out turnips, which symbolized the souls they were honoring. The use of hollowed-out turnips with candles inside as lanterns by solars during souling is one of the earliest precursors to the modern jack-o'-lantern. This tradition evolved into the use of pumpkins in North America, which were larger and easier to carve. It was believed that these lanterns could help ward off evil spirits while also guiding the souls of loved ones back to their earthly homes. Interestingly, while the tradition of souling became associated with All-Hallowtide, it was also practiced around Christmas in some regions. During certain periods, soulers would visit homes during Christmas time, which may have influenced the later practice of Christmas caroling, where singers visit homes and receive small gifts or money in exchange for their songs. Another deeply rooted tradition during All-Hallowtide was the lighting of candles in memory of the deceased. Even today, lighting a candle to honor a loved one's memory is a widespread practice. But in medieval times, these candles served more than a commemorative role. They were also believed to guide benevolent spirits back to their families and keep malevolent entities at bay, preventing them from entering the home. Additionally, in certain parts of Europe during the 16th century, bowls of milk and food were left at grave sites as offerings to the spirits of the departed, hoping to ensure their peaceful transition to the afterlife. By the 16th century, interpretations of how to observe All-Hallowtide varied widely, especially as Christianity fractured into numerous denominations following the Protestant Reformation. Many Protestant groups, particularly those with a strict interpretation of Scripture, viewed the idea of purgatory as a Catholic superstition. As a result, traditions like souling and praying for souls in purgatory were dismissed by many reformers, while others adapted these practices to fit their own theological perspectives. The Protestant Reformation significantly altered the religious landscape of Europe, leading to conflicts and tensions between different Christian factions. It was in this period of upheaval that another significant event took place. Guy Fawkes' failed plot in 1605, an attempt to blow up the English Parliament and assassinate King James I to restore Catholic influence in England. The Gunpowder Plot, as it became known, failed spectacularly. Fawkes was captured, and the 5th of November became known as Guy Fawkes Day, or Bonfire Night in England. This celebration involved bonfires and fireworks, with effigies of Guy Fawkes being burned as a symbol of his failed rebellion. Though it isn't directly tied to Halloween, the practices of lighting bonfires and parading with effigies mirrored some of the communal and ritualistic aspects of Halloween. Some of these elements may have influenced how Halloween was later celebrated in England and beyond. The next major shift in Halloween's evolution occurred with the spread of European culture to the New World. As the Spanish, Portuguese, English, French, and Dutch established colonies across the Americas during the 17th and 18th centuries, they brought with them not only their customs, but also their religious observances. Among these traditions were the celebrations of All Hallowtide, which began to mix with the practices of the indigenous peoples and the various Christian denominations of the colonies. In the 13 American colonies, many different kinds of Christians could be found, from the strict Puritans who sought to distance themselves from Catholic traditions, to other groups that maintained elements of their European religious practices. This cultural melting pot set the stage for the further transformation of Halloween, as the Old World customs merged with New World sensibilities and local folklore. When the 13 English colonies were first established in North America, many church holidays, including All Hallows' Eve, went largely uncelebrated among certain groups, such as the Puritans. These settlers sought to distance themselves from what they considered the excesses of Catholic and Anglican traditions, preferring a more austere and straightforward approach to their faith. As a result, observances like Christmas, Easter, and All Hallows' Eve were either outright rejected or kept to a minimum. However, over time, the colonies gained independence and opened their doors to a broader array of European immigrants. Among these newcomers, one particular group would prove pivotal in shaping Halloween as we know it today: the Irish, with a significant cultural contribution from the Scottish as well. The Irish influx, especially during the mid-19th century with the Great Potato Famine, would help popularize and transform Halloween into a widely recognized American tradition. Today, approximately 30% of Americans can trace their ancestry back to Ireland, compared to around 8% with Scottish heritage, though the Scots-Irish, descendants of Scottish settlers who had migrated to Ireland, are often included in the broader Irish demographic. When the Irish and Scots arrived in America, they brought with them a range of traditions, some ancient, others more recent, that gradually caught the interest of the American public. One of the most significant contributions was the art of turnip carving during Halloween. As we mentioned earlier, hollowed-out turnips had been used as lanterns, but in Ireland and Scotland, these turnips were often carved with grotesque faces, either to represent souls in purgatory or to ward off malevolent spirits. One such spirit was the infamous Jack of the Lantern, whose story became entwined with the evolving Halloween traditions. When the Irish and Scots settled in America, they discovered a new fruit that was far easier to carve than the traditional turnip: the pumpkin. The pumpkin, native to North America, had a soft rind that made it perfect for creating intricate designs. By the 1820s or 1830s, Americans had begun carving pumpkins, though initially as part of harvest celebrations rather than specifically for Halloween. The practice quickly caught on, especially as the Celtic immigrants embraced the new tradition and brought their folklore into the mix. Within a century, pumpkin carving had become synonymous with Halloween, transforming from a local autumn pastime to a beloved national tradition. Pumpkins were not only easier to carve than turnips, but their larger size made them ideal for creating expressive, eerie faces, which contributed to their widespread adoption in Halloween festivities. Throughout the 19th century, harvest festivals and autumn gatherings across America began incorporating elements that we would now consider Halloween-like. Activities such as telling ghost stories, apple bobbing, and lighting bonfires began to merge with the pumpkin carving practices brought by the Irish and Scots, creating a unique blend of Old World customs and New World celebrations. It was during this period that the transformation of Halloween into a more recognizable version of the modern holiday took shape. As Halloween evolved, the story of Jack of the Lantern, better known as Stingy Jack, Drunk Jack, or simply Jack of the Lantern, became a popular tale, particularly among Irish immigrants. Jack was a cunning trickster, infamous for his deceitful and treacherous nature. He lied, cheated, and swindled his way through life, causing trouble for everyone around him. One foggy night, while wandering drunkenly through the countryside, Jack encountered a mysterious figure on the road, who revealed himself to be Satan. The devil had heard rumors of Jack's wicked deeds and had come to take his soul to hell. Jack, however, was not ready to face his fate. He pleaded with Satan for one last request, a chance to have one more drink before facing eternal damnation. Stories like that of Stingy Jack were not uncommon in Irish folklore, which often featured clever protagonists who tricked supernatural beings. These tales were meant to convey moral lessons while entertaining listeners with their dark humor. Satan, intrigued by Jack's audacity, agreed to the request, and the two made their way to a nearby pub, where Jack downed several Alish. When it came time to pay, Jack convinced Satan to transform into a silver coin so that he could settle the bill. But as soon as the devil turned into a coin, Jack slyly slipped it into his pocket, right beside a crucifix. The presence of the holy symbol prevented Satan from changing back to his original form. With Satan trapped, Jack struck a bargain. He would release the devil if Satan promised not to claim his soul for another year. Begrudgingly, Satan agreed to Jack's terms, and they parted ways. A year later, Jack and Satan met under similar circumstances, leading to yet another round of trickery that would ultimately seal Jack's fate. But this time, Jack's cleverness would not save him from the strange fate that awaited him after death. The story of Stingy Jack, with its blend of dark humor and moral lessons, continued to be passed down through generations, eventually becoming part of the Halloween lore that shaped the holiday's spooky character. After a year had passed since their previous encounter, Jack found himself once again face to face with Satan along a lonely road. This time, knowing that his end was near, Jack made a much simpler request. He merely asked for an apple. He told Satan that before facing eternal damnation, he wished to enjoy the taste of one last fruit. Satan, seemingly forgetting the trickery Jack had pulled a year earlier, agreed to this harmless request. He turned toward a nearby apple tree, intending to pick the fruit himself. But as Satan climbed the tree to reach an apple, Jack, true to his cunning nature, swiftly placed crucifixes around the base of the tree. With these symbols in place, Satan found himself trapped yet again, unable to descend from the tree. The imagery of Satan trapped by crucifixes and an apple tree is rich with symbolism, drawing a parallel to the biblical tale of the Garden of Eden, where a forbidden fruit led to humankind's downfall. Enraged by his predicament, Satan demanded his release, but Jack saw an opportunity to secure his future. "I'll let you down," Jack told Satan, "but you must swear to me that you will never take me to hell." Seeing no other option, Satan grudgingly agreed to the terms, promising to never claim Jack's soul for his infernal realm. Once again, they parted ways, and Satan disappeared, leaving Jack to continue his troubled life. However, the passage of time eventually caught up with Jack. His sinful lifestyle took a toll on him, and he met his death. As his soul departed from the physical world, Jack made his way to the gates of heaven, hoping to find peace in the afterlife. But when he arrived, God denied him entry. Jack's life of deceit, trickery, and selfishness made him unworthy of heaven's grace. With no other option, Jack journeyed to the gates of hell, where he begged Satan to let him in. Hell, he reasoned, was better than wandering the world in eternal isolation. Yet, true to the bargain they had made, Satan refused to take him in. Bound by his word, Satan reminded Jack that he was never to enter hell. Satan, however, did not send Jack away completely empty-handed. He took a burning ember from the fires of hell and handed it to Jack. But the ember was too hot for Jack to carry, so he hollowed out a turnip, a fruit he was familiar with from his homeland, and placed the ember inside, fashioning a makeshift lantern. With this dimly glowing turnip lantern, Jack was condemned to wander the earth for eternity, his ghostly figure drifting through the darkness. According to Irish folklore, those who ventured out on All Hallows Eve might catch a glimpse of Jack-o'-the-Lantern, or the Jack-o'-lantern, as he roamed the roads and countryside of Ireland, carrying his eerie light. The tradition of carving lanterns out of turnips or pumpkins is believed to have originated from tales like that of Stingy Jack, symbolizing a soul trapped between worlds, unable to find rest in either heaven or hell. The legend of Stingy Jack and his cursed fate became a story passed down through generations of Irish storytellers, capturing the imagination of those who feared being lost in the in-between, neither fully alive nor truly dead. When the Irish immigrated to America, they brought this haunting tale with them, helping to shape the jack-o'-lantern tradition that is now a central part of Halloween celebrations. As Halloween evolved, the turnip was replaced by the pumpkin, a more accessible and easier to carve fruit in the New World, but the legacy of Jack-o'-the-lantern remained. The flickering lights of jack-o'-lanterns on porches across America still serve as a reminder of this enduring tale, a symbol of both Halloween's supernatural roots and the blending of Old World folklore with New World traditions. The tale of Stingy Jack is one of many variations, with the version recounted here being among the most common. Yet, it was these eerie stories that fueled a growing tradition. The belief that Stingy Jack could be seen wandering the countryside with his lantern on Halloween night. This notion may have been further encouraged by sightings of a mysterious natural phenomenon known as the will-o'-the-wisp, also called ignis fatuus, which translates from Latin to fool's fire. The will-o'-the-wisp is a naturally occurring burst of flammable gases that often appears over bogs and marshlands, producing a faint, flickering light. These glowing orbs, sometimes in shades of blue, green, or red, have fascinated and puzzled people for centuries. As they danced across the landscape, it was easy for those living in rural Ireland or Scotland to believe they were witnessing the spectral glow of Jack of the Lantern. When the Irish and Scottish immigrants arrived in America, they brought many of their traditions with them. One of these was the practice of guising, where children would dress in costumes and go door to door asking for coins or food. This custom, likely related to the older tradition of souling, was common in parts of Europe and reflected a blend of both Christian and pagan influences. The first recorded instance of guising in North America occurred in Ontario, Canada, during the 1910s, and it wasn't long before reports of children dressing up for Halloween appeared in the United States as well. By the 1920s, children were guising in Chicago, and the town of Anoka, Minnesota, even began hosting Halloween parades. Anoka eventually declared itself the Halloween capital of the world, a title it still proudly holds as part of its cultural heritage. Today, Anoka, a small city of about 17,000 people located outside of Minneapolis, is known for its elaborate Halloween celebrations, including parades, costume contests, and community events that draw visitors from around the region. Though guising bore a resemblance to modern trick-or-treating, it wasn't exactly the same. In Ireland and Scotland, children would often perform a song, recite a poem, or even play a flute in exchange for their treats. This practice has similarities with other European traditions, such as Christmas caroling, where performers would go house to house, singing songs in exchange for a small reward. Another influence may have been the practice of mumming, where people would dress in elaborate costumes and perform in public spaces, hoping for donations, a practice that continues today in the form of street performers. These customs slowly evolved and melded together, giving rise to what we now know as trick-or-treating. The phrase trick-or-treat itself became popular in North America around the late 1930s and is thought to have been coined in the United States. The treat part is straightforward enough, referring to the candies and sweets given to children on Halloween. But what about the trick? Does it suggest a thinly veiled threat of mischief if no treats are given? Well, in a sense, yes. In Ireland and Scotland, it was believed that those who gave generously to solars or geysers would be rewarded with good fortune, while those who refused might suffer misfortune. Some children, unwilling to wait for divine retribution, took matters into their own hands. They would play pranks on those who failed to offer them a treat, embodying the spirit of trickery that has become a hallmark of Halloween. In the early 20th century, a separate tradition developed, particularly in England and North America, called Mischief Night. Held on October 30th, or in some parts of England, on November 4th, the night before Bonfire Night. This was a night when children engaged in all manner of pranks and vandalism. Common activities included egging houses, smashing windows or light bulbs, and even disassembling wagons and placing them on rooftops. Mischief Night became a widely anticipated event for youth to indulge in some rowdy fun. Mischief Night's antics could be quite elaborate, with pranks ranging from simple toilet papering of trees to more involved stunts like reassembling wagons on rooftops. Though these pranks may seem like harmless hijinks today, they were often a real nuisance to local communities. By the 1930s and 1940s, however, the mischief had become too widespread and unruly, prompting communities in America and Canada to take action. They decided to channel the energies of children into more positive and structured activities, turning Halloween into a night of festivities rather than mayhem. Communities organized costume contests, haunted houses, and of course, trick-or-treating. It became an unspoken deal. In exchange for candy, children would refrain from engaging in pranks. As those children grew up, many of them found themselves reluctant to let go of the Halloween spirit. The traditions they had embraced as children carried into their adult lives, shaping the holiday into the celebration of costumes, decorations, and spooky fun that we know today. The term Mischief Night is still used in some parts of North America and England, but it has largely faded from the mainstream Halloween narrative, with most attention now focused on costume parades and trick-or-treating. Halloween became a party for people of all ages. The modern Halloween celebration was taking place. A myriad of European traditions, mainly from Ireland and Scotland, were giving birth to this new holiday in America and Canada. Sugar rations during the Second World War put a damper on a celebration, but once the war was finished in the 1940s, the holiday took off. Halloween wasn't really so much about religion anymore, though some churches still organized Halloween get-togethers and things along those lines for children and families. Churches are a common location for trunk-or-treating. Halloween's mythical origins are deeply intertwined with the Gothic literary tradition, particularly during the Victorian era, roughly 1830 to 1900. This period saw the emergence of iconic Halloween imagery that persists to this day, including the quintessential haunted Victorian mansion and its ghostly inhabitants, well-mannered, educated, and mysteriously deceased. The Victorian age marked the zenith of Gothic literature, producing legendary authors such as Bram Stoker, Edgar Allan Poe, Mary Shelley, and Robert Louis Stevenson, whose works continue to shape our Halloween celebrations. These literary giants crafted tales that have become the bedrock of Halloween lore, often surpassing modern attempts in their ability to captivate and terrify readers. While contemporary horror has undoubtedly contributed to Halloween's evolution, we frequently find ourselves returning to these classics for inspiration, underscoring their enduring influence on the holiday's mythology and aesthetics. The influence of Bram Stoker's Dracula on Halloween imagery is significant, as it cemented the idea of the vampire in popular culture. But beyond Dracula, the Victorian era was replete with ghost stories and dark tales, which lent themselves perfectly to the eerie atmosphere we associate with Halloween. Ghost stories became a Victorian pastime, told around flickering candles or in the warm glow of fireplaces during long winter nights. Spirits from beyond the grave, tragic figures that couldn't rest in peace, and mysterious spectral occurrences became common themes. Many Victorian-era authors tapped into the atmosphere of ancient ruins, Gothic castles, and the misty moors of England and Scotland, connecting to older European traditions of death and the supernatural. This time period saw a fascination with the afterlife and an obsession with death and mourning practices, giving rise to seances and the spiritualist movement. The Victorian fascination with death also resulted in elaborate mourning customs, such as post-mortem photography and the keeping of locks of hair as mementos, which added a somber, almost macabre dimension to their culture. Victorian literature wasn't just confined to ghosts. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein gave birth to the archetype of the misunderstood monster. Published in 1818, the novel's themes of playing God and creating life from death resonated with audiences. It set the stage for subsequent tales of science gone awry, another staple of the horror genre. The imagery of a stitched-together, reanimated corpse and the tragic, tormented soul of the creature continue to haunt our collective imaginations. Then there is Edgar Allan Poe, whose tales of madness, despair, and death became a touchstone for macabre storytelling. Works like The Telltale Heart, The Fall of the House of Usher, and The Raven capture an atmosphere of psychological terror. Poe's influence extended far beyond his time, and his dark, poetic vision left a lasting mark on horror literature, providing a rich source of inspiration for those seeking to evoke the grim and mysterious on Halloween. As the stories of vampires, monsters, and restless spirits were absorbed into the wider culture, they mixed with folklore and older traditions. The American fascination with the haunted and mysterious found a home in the landscape itself. Wooded areas, old houses, abandoned buildings, all places where the unknown could dwell. The association of Halloween with eerie tales became stronger, as these settings lent themselves perfectly to the kinds of stories that people wanted to hear on a dark October night. By the time Halloween had fully transformed into a celebration of all things spooky in the mid-20th century, these Gothic stories had become foundational to the imagery and themes of the holiday. Children might dress up as mummies, vampires, or werewolves, inspired by the cinematic adaptations of these classic tales, while others sought to create the same chilling atmosphere in haunted houses or neighborhood decorations. The Victorian tradition of ghost stories, alongside classic literature like Dracula and Frankenstein, blended seamlessly into a holiday that embraced the supernatural, the eerie, and the unknown. While Halloween today may be seen as a fun night of costumes and candy, the ghostly stories of the past still linger in the shadows, making it a time when the veil between the living and the dead seems just a little thinner. The association between witches, ghosts, and other supernatural beings became firmly embedded in the myths and stories of Halloween. This melding of European folklore with the eerie atmosphere of the Gothic tradition helped shape Halloween as a night when the supernatural felt palpably close. The Victorian era's fascination with death and the supernatural, coupled with stories like Dracula and Frankenstein, added another layer to the evolving Halloween mythology. But the roots of many of these tales go back even further, to the dark corners of European forests where villagers feared creatures of the night, and to the grim reality of historical events like the witch trials. As the legend of the vampire merged with the myth of the witch, Halloween grew into a holiday that brought together the fears and mysteries of the past with the celebrations of the present, making it a night where the old world's ghosts continue to walk among us. From the tragic figure of Vlad the Impaler inspiring Stoker's Dracula to the dark imagery of witches and haunted houses, Halloween serves as a reminder of how myths and historical events have intertwined to create a night where the unknown is embraced, if only for a few hours each year. According to some polls, belief in ghosts remains surprisingly common even in the modern age. Studies suggest that around 40 to 45% of Americans believe in the existence of ghosts or spirits, with some variations depending on age, region, and religious beliefs. Ghost sightings and stories have become an integral part of local folklore and urban legends, each story adding a bit more to the mystery and fear that surrounds the concept of the supernatural. Tales of haunted houses, restless spirits, and eerie occurrences are a staple of Halloween storytelling, adding an extra layer of intrigue and dread to the night. The origins of ghost stories are as old as humanity itself. Many ancient cultures believed in the spirits of the deceased, viewing them as beings who could interact with the living world, sometimes with friendly intentions, but more often with malevolent ones. In ancient Greece, for example, it was thought that those who did not receive a proper burial would become restless spirits, wandering the earth until their bodies were properly laid to rest. Similarly, the ancient Egyptians built elaborate tombs for their pharaohs, ensuring their spirits could find peace in the afterlife. During the medieval period in Europe, the Christian concept of purgatory added to the fear of wandering souls. It was believed that some spirits remained on earth because they were not yet ready for heaven or were burdened by unfinished business. This fear was often linked to concerns about morality, sin, and the idea that those who led sinful lives could return to haunt the living. Such beliefs were further reinforced by the Gothic tales of the Victorian era, with stories like Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol popularizing the idea of ghosts who return to convey warnings or unfinished messages. Ghosts and other supernatural entities became a natural subject for Halloween celebrations, which focus on the thin veil between the living and the dead. Stories of haunted places, creepy encounters, and mysterious happenings add to the thrill of the night. The tradition of ghost stories told around a fire, or even retold in dimly lit rooms, keeps alive a connection to the long history of human fascination with the afterlife and the unknown. But not all stories of the undead are as ethereal as those of ghosts. Zombies, reanimated corpses that shuffle along, driven by a hunger for the living, are a different breed of horror. The concept of zombies is heavily associated with Haitian folklore, where the idea of zombification is linked to the practice of voodoo. In these stories, a person could be brought back to life by a sorcerer, known as a bakar, and then controlled as a mindless servant. This form of zombification has its roots in the transatlantic slave trade, symbolizing the ultimate loss of freedom and identity. The idea of zombies in Western culture, however, has taken on a different tone, popularized by films like George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead in 1968. Romero's vision of the zombie apocalypse turned these creatures into symbols of societal fears, from nuclear annihilation to pandemics and the breakdown of social order. Today, zombies are an iconic part of Halloween, featured in costumes, decorations, and endless variations in pop culture, from movies and TV shows to video games. Skeletons are another classic Halloween figure, often seen dancing in haunted houses or serving as a reminder of the inevitability of death. The image of a grinning skull has long been associated with death and the macabre, symbolizing the idea that beneath our living flesh, we all share the same skeletal structure. The use of skeleton imagery can be traced back to the medieval danse macabre or dance of death, an artistic theme that reminded people of their mortality in a time when plague and famine were all too common. In Mexican culture, skeletons take on a more celebratory role during the Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, a festival that coincides with the days around Halloween. Unlike the more somber ghost stories of the West, the Day of the Dead is a time for families to honor their deceased relatives with altars, offerings, and decorations, including colorful sugar skulls. This tradition, which has ancient roots in Aztec culture, views death as a natural part of life, and the spirits of the deceased are welcomed back for a brief visit with joy and respect. Whether as eerie apparitions or shambling zombies, the undead captivate our imaginations. They remind us of the mysteries of life and death, and the fear of what lies beyond the grave. Halloween provides a space for these fears to be confronted, even if only through playful scares and spooky stories. And while modern society may no longer fear the supernatural in the way that past generations did, the allure of a good ghost story or a thrilling zombie chase remains a big part of Halloween's appeal. Halloween has become a celebration where the veil between reality and the supernatural is playfully lifted, allowing people to confront ancient fears and stories through a blend of tradition, myth, and modern culture. From Salem's tragic witch trials to the haunted legends of Victorian houses, and from ancient tales of restless spirits to the contemporary craze for zombies, Halloween is a mosaic of human history's attempt to understand, cope with, and celebrate the unknown. As the sun sets on October 31st and darkness spreads across the land, these old stories come to life once again, inviting us to explore what lurks in the shadows. The evolution of Halloween from ancient traditions to a modern global phenomenon has been shaped by various factors, including religion, mythology, and contemporary culture. Halloween's adaptation to the modern world has been significant. The holiday gained official recognition when Dwight D. Eisenhower became the first U.S. president to celebrate Halloween in the White House in 1958, thanks to his wife Mamie Eisenhower's initiative. Mamie Eisenhower's 1958 introduction of Halloween to the White House marked a significant moment in bringing the holiday into the American mainstream, especially as it began to evolve from its folkloric and superstitious roots into a family-friendly celebration. The White House Halloween festivities set a precedent for future administrations to follow, showcasing the lighter, more playful side of the holiday and emphasizing activities like trick-or-treating, costumes, and festive decorations. Over the years, Halloween celebrations at the White House have continued, each administration adding its own flair to the tradition, welcoming children, and turning the halls of America's executive residence into a space of spooky fun. The shift from Halloween's darker origins to its modern, whimsical version aligns with broader cultural changes in the 20th century. The early roots of Halloween, as discussed earlier, were steeped in superstitions about spirits and the afterlife, heavily influenced by the Celtic festival of Samhain and Christian observances like All Hallows' Eve. But by the time Halloween reached mid-20th century America, it had become a community-centered event, characterized by trick-or-treating and costume parties. This transformation from a night of warding off spirits to one of neighborhood gatherings and candy exchanges reflects society's changing attitudes toward death and the supernatural. Halloween in the United States, and later in other parts of the world, became a commercial powerhouse by the latter half of the 20th century. With the rise of mass media, movies, television shows, and even radio programs that centered around horror themes helped shape the public's perception of the holiday. Films like Halloween, 1978, and other horror classics cemented Halloween's association with fear and suspense, even as it remained a time for children to dress up and collect sweets. These media representations played a significant role in creating the cultural phenomenon that Halloween is today, a blend of lighthearted fun and a fascination with the eerie. In Europe, countries like Ireland and Scotland have kept alive some of the older Samhain traditions, such as bonfires and storytelling, even as modern Halloween customs have become more widespread. In Japan, Halloween has taken on a unique form, where the emphasis is on elaborate costumes and celebrations in major cities, influenced by cosplay culture. The Japanese version of Halloween often involves parades, costume parties, and a more secular, creative expression of the holiday's themes. Meanwhile, in countries like Germany, All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day remain important, although Halloween has slowly gained popularity in recent decades as well. Despite its growth and evolution into a global celebration, Halloween has not been without controversy. Some critics argue that the holiday's embrace of horror, darkness, and the occult can have a negative influence, particularly on children. Concerns about safety, such as tampered candy or dangerous pranks, have long been part of Halloween lore. Others worry about the commercialization of the holiday, arguing that the original meanings behind ancient traditions have been overshadowed by mass-produced decorations and candy sales. Religious groups have also sometimes viewed Halloween with suspicion, seeing its pagan roots as incompatible with Christian teachings. In some communities, This has led to alternative celebrations, such as harvest festivals or church-organized events that focus on autumnal activities and family fun without the emphasis on ghosts, witches, or skeletons. For others, however, Halloween remains a time to revel in the fun of spooky stories, creative costumes, and the thrill of being scared, at least for a night. It provides a space to explore fear in a safe and playful way, allowing both children and adults to confront the unknown through harmless frights. The future of Halloween will likely continue to be shaped by cultural trends and social changes. The rise of technology has already influenced the holiday, with digital decorations, virtual haunted houses, and social media playing a role in how people share their Halloween experiences. Meanwhile, the ongoing fascination with horror and the supernatural ensures that the themes of Halloween will endure. As a celebration that has evolved over centuries, adapting to new beliefs and societies, Halloween's adaptability is part of its strength. Whether it will retain its focus on the eerie and mysterious, or become even more of a creative outlet, Halloween remains a reflection of society's enduring interest in what lies beyond the veil. Its combination of ancient fears and modern fun ensures that it will continue to be a night when anything can happen, when the boundaries between the living and the dead, the past and the present, seem to blur, even if only for a moment. As Halloween continues to grow and change, its core remains the same, a time for stories, for facing our fears, and for remembering that the world, despite all our knowledge, still holds mysteries that we may never fully understand. From haunted houses to the whispers of ghosts, from the eerie poetry of Poe to the laughter of children in costumes, Halloween invites us to step into the shadows and enjoy the thrill of the unknown. And in that sense, it is likely to remain a beloved tradition for years to come. In many parts of the world, Halloween's spread has been met with mixed reactions, where local traditions, climates, and cultural differences play significant roles in determining how, or if, it is celebrated. For some countries, Halloween is seen as a fun, novel import, but one that doesn't quite resonate with their own seasonal rhythms or cultural calendar. Yet, among younger generations, Halloween's themes of costumes, parties, and a playful engagement with the spooky and supernatural have made it a rising trend, even in places that don't share the traditional roots of a holiday. In Japan, for example, Halloween has become quite popular in urban areas, with large parades, cosplay, and themed events. The Japanese take on Halloween leans heavily into the costume culture that is already popular in the country. Tokyo's Shibuya district, in particular, has become famous for massive Halloween gatherings where people come dressed as their favorite characters, and the streets fill with elaborate costumes. However, trick-or-treating is less common, and the focus is more on the party and celebration aspects rather than traditional Halloween practices. Similarly, South Korea has adopted Halloween in a more urban and commercial sense, particularly in places like Seoul. Events in amusement parks, bars, and entertainment districts draw large crowds, and Halloween-themed items, from decorations to food, are readily available in stores. However, much like in Japan, the holiday celebration is more about fun and pop culture rather than a deep cultural or historical connection to its origins. In continental Europe, countries like Germany and France have a more skeptical view of Halloween. Some regions, particularly in Germany, celebrate Walpurgisnacht, which shares some of Halloween's supernatural themes but takes place in the spring. As Halloween gains traction, some Germans see it as a commercial, Americanized import, but younger people and city dwellers have begun to embrace it, enjoying costume parties and spooky-themed events. France, too, has seen some adoption of Halloween, particularly in Paris, where costume parties and themed decorations have become more common. However, many French people remain resistant, preferring their own local customs around All Saints' Day, La Toussaint, which is a time to visit cemeteries and remember deceased loved ones. In Australia and New Zealand, Halloween has faced a seasonal challenge. October is springtime in the Southern Hemisphere, and the warm, blooming environment can feel at odds with Halloween's traditional autumnal imagery of pumpkins, falling leaves, and the harvest season. Nonetheless, Halloween has been slowly growing in popularity, particularly among families with children who enjoy trick-or-treating and costume parties. Retailers have also jumped on board, offering decorations and candy, but the celebration remains a bit more niche compared to its presence in the United States. In parts of Africa and the Middle East, Halloween is even more of a rarity. Some expat communities may hold Halloween parties, and a few urban centers have adopted aspects of the holiday, but it is generally viewed as a foreign practice without much connection to local customs or traditions. In many Islamic countries, Halloween's association with ghosts and supernatural themes has not always sat well with cultural or religious norms, making the holiday a less common sight. In China, Halloween is not widely celebrated, though some themed events occur in larger cities like Beijing and Shanghai, primarily catering to tourists and younger people interested in Western culture. There is also the Hungry Ghost Festival, celebrated in some regions, which has themes similar to Halloween, but it takes place in the seventh month of the lunar calendar and focuses on appeasing the spirits of deceased ancestors. Despite its varying reception around the world, Halloween's ability to blend fun with the eerie has given it a unique appeal. It represents a blend of ancient traditions and modern festivities, a time when cultural exchanges can give rise to new interpretations of what it means to celebrate the mysterious, the macabre, and the supernatural. For many, it's a chance to engage in a bit of escapism, to step into a world of fantasy, and to explore fears in a safe, playful way. As Halloween continues to spread and adapt, it remains a testament to how traditions can evolve, picking up new meanings while retaining echoes of the past. Whether celebrated with the reverence of the Day of the Dead, the revelry of Japan's Halloween parades, or the family fun of American trick-or-treating, Halloween's global journey shows that there's something about the season of ghosts and ghouls that speaks to the human fascination with the mysterious, no matter where you are. In 1964, a New York woman named Helen File gave out packages of candy laced with inedible items like ant poison and dog biscuits. She reportedly did this as a prank, targeting what she called greedy kids. Thankfully, no one was harmed by her bizarre treats, but the incident set off a wave of concerns and urban legends about Halloween candy being tampered with. Helen File was arrested and faced charges of endangering children, but this event marked one of the earliest widely reported cases of Halloween-related candy tampering. Over the decades, similar stories emerged, creating a sense of paranoia around the holiday. For example, in 1970, a tragic story surfaced when a 5-year-old boy named Kevin Toston died after ingesting heroin. The initial reports suggested that the drug had been sprinkled into his Halloween candy, stoking fears of dangerous substances in trick-or-treat treats. However, it was later revealed that the boy had actually found the heroin at a relative's home, and the story was fabricated to cover up the real cause of the child's exposure. Despite this, the damage was done, and stories like these continued to fuel anxieties around Halloween. The most infamous case that cemented the fear of poisoned Halloween candy happened in 1974. A man named Ronald O'Brien, often referred to as the Candy Man, intentionally poisoned his own son, Timothy, with cyanide-laced pixie sticks in a twisted attempt to collect life insurance money. O'Brien handed out the poison candy to several other children as well to create a cover story that a mysterious neighbor had tampered with the candy. Tragically, Timothy died after eating the poison candy, but the other children did not consume theirs. O'Brien's actions were eventually discovered, and he was convicted and executed for his crime. This case, while horrific, was an isolated incident, yet it did much to cement the idea in the public mind that trick-or-treating could be a deadly activity. Despite these rare incidents, the majority of stories about tainted Halloween candy remain largely urban legends. Sociologists and criminologists who have studied reports of tampered Halloween candy found that most cases were either unsubstantiated or had been debunked. Joel Best, a sociologist who has extensively researched Halloween candy scares, found that there is no evidence of a stranger ever intentionally killing or seriously injuring a child through tampered Halloween candy. Instead, these fears seem to reflect broader social anxieties, where concerns about safety are projected onto an activity that involves children being out and about, sometimes after dark, and interacting with strangers. Other Halloween fears involve reports of hidden dangers like razor blades, needles, or other sharp objects concealed in candy apples or chocolate bars. While a few cases of needles or pins in candy have been reported, these are exceptionally rare, and most have been found to be pranks rather than serious attempts to cause harm. One case from 2000 in Minneapolis involved a man placing needles in Snickers bars, but none of the children were seriously harmed, and it appeared to be more of a misguided attempt at mischief rather than a malevolent plot. Nonetheless, these stories resurface nearly every year, often amplified by local news stations or social media posts, urging parents to carefully inspect their children's candy. While it's always wise to be cautious, the data shows that the actual risk is exceedingly low. In fact, children are statistically more at risk from everyday hazards like car accidents while crossing the street than from poisoned or tampered Halloween treats. Beyond these specific fears, other critics have raised concerns about Halloween's impact on children, focusing on themes like its association with fear, violence, and the macabre. Some parents worry that the holiday's darker aspects, haunted houses, horror movies, gory costumes, might be too much for young children or promote unhealthy fascinations with death and the supernatural. These concerns have been counterbalanced by others who see Halloween as a fun and harmless way for kids to explore spooky themes in a safe and controlled environment. Religious groups have also raised objections to Halloween, sometimes labeling it as having pagan or occult roots, and thus inappropriate for children to celebrate. Certain Christian communities, in particular, have argued that the holiday's connections to witchcraft, ghosts, and the supernatural make it incompatible with their beliefs. This has led some churches to hold alternative events like harvest festivals or trunk-or-treat gatherings, where children can dress up in less scary costumes and enjoy a Halloween-like experience in a church parking lot. Despite these controversies, the vast majority of families who celebrate Halloween do so without incident, enjoying the tradition of dressing up, trick-or-treating, carving pumpkins, and attending parties. The spirit of Halloween, with its blend of fear, fantasy, and fun, continues to captivate both children and adults. And while the fears about dangerous candy may never completely disappear, they are far outweighed by the joy that millions find in a night of playful frights and imaginative costumes. The concern over Halloween's safety and cultural appropriateness seems unlikely to pose a serious threat to the holiday's long-term survival. It has proven to be remarkably adaptable over the years, evolving from ancient Celtic rites into a modern celebration of all things spooky. Halloween has become an enduring part of popular culture, inspiring countless movies, TV shows, and books. As long as people continue to be fascinated by the mysterious, the macabre, and the thrill of a good scare, Halloween will likely remain a beloved tradition. Yet, in a world where anxieties can spread as quickly as ghost stories, it's worth remembering that much of what frightens us about Halloween exists more in our imaginations than in reality. For most, the greatest dangers on Halloween night are not spectral but practical, like ensuring kids stay visible on dark streets and don't eat too much candy at once. The true spirit of Halloween is one of creativity, community, and a playful dance with the unknown, all wrapped in the crisp autumn air. And that, perhaps, is what keeps this ancient yet ever-modern celebration alive. Halloween, in essence, is a vibrant tapestry woven from various cultural threads, each adding a unique hue to the holiday we know today. It is a celebration that, at first glance, may seem simple: costumes, candy, spooky tales. But in reality, its roots extend deep into history, spanning continents and centuries. The name Halloween itself is derived from All Hallows' Eve, the night before the Christian observance of All Saints' Day. It was a time to remember the dead, including saints, the hallowed, and martyrs. But its origins stretch back further, entwined with ancient pagan celebrations, particularly the Celtic festival of Samhain, which marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. For the Celts, Samhain was a liminal time when the boundaries between the living and the spirit world blurred, allowing for the passage of supernatural entities into the physical world. Halloween is a blend of the old and the new, the sacred and the profane, the eerie and the festive. It is a holiday that has evolved to fit the times, adapting ancient customs to modern sensibilities while keeping alive a sense of mystery and wonder. Whether through ancient rituals meant to honor the dead or the more recent tradition of haunted attractions meant to thrill and entertain, Halloween continues to be a night when we explore the thin line between reality and the supernatural. In its complexity, Halloween offers something for everyone: a chance to connect with ancient traditions, to explore the thrill of the unknown, or simply to dress up and revel in the joys of the season. It is a holiday that invites us to look into the shadows, to imagine what might lie beyond, and to celebrate the strangeness and magic of the world. And in this way, it remains one of the most enduring and beloved celebrations across cultures, a time when we can all partake in a little bit of mystery and fun. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, I invite you to subscribe to see more videos like this in the future.